As a physician, you're consulting with experts and super specialists all the time, right? So as we're talking about med school and marriage, it only makes sense to bring in a specialist.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Chad Brands.
And I'm Marla Brands.
Life's bigger than medicine. If you haven't guessed, Marla's my wonderful wife of over 3 decades. We've even had 3 kids in common. This is that spouse's point of view. If you haven't seen part 1, part 2, go back and watch those videos at your convenience. This one's going to probably be more entertaining, and it's going to be even better because Marla's joining me. We thought it was important being married young in medical school to really understand what went into all of that. So we decided to really unpack all of that and hopefully share some insights and perspectives on what's been a great journey for us, recognizing that everybody's journey is different. So let's answer some questions together. Let's do this.
How long had you known Chad when you found out that he would be going to med school? And what was your reaction?
I knew he expected to go to medical school before we got out of high school. I knew that the expectations were there.
The expectations versus reality. You knew that he was going to go into med school for a while before going into med school. Mm-hmm. Was it as advertised for you? Was it more challenging, more difficult? Was it easier in some ways?
Well, I had an older man come up to me in my small community when we were just dating, and he said, "Are you ready to be married to a doctor?" And that really got me thinking. He said, "It's a hard life." And so I had that grounding, I had that expectation. I kind of always kept it in the back of my mind. So I was prepared, I would say, pretty well. And yeah, it proved to be very difficult at times. Being really far from our families and together more than probably once a year, that was hard. Yeah, we went from small town to huge city. Geographically, it was very far away. Everything was new. I had never been in the state before.
I mean, we lived in an apartment unit complex in the inner city in medical school. Mm-hmm. And when we took our family back there, including a second son years later, he's like, "The razor wire, is that to keep people in or keep people out?" I mean, we were there at a particularly dangerous time.
We often just studied at home. I would quiz Chad because he needed to study for his exams, and I was the one there, so I would quiz him and learn a lot of things along the way.
Yeah, Marla was not a medical student, but we did do some studying together. You just reminded me. That seems like a long time ago. But she quizzed me, and I think I survived those quizzes and thrived. Mm-hmm. They were tough quizzes.
And I learned a few things along the way, too.
We both had tight study spaces and worked it out together, right? One of those videos talks about how to navigate that space. Set your place, find your space.
Right. We had a 2-bedroom condo, and one of the bedrooms was an office space for us. So we shared that. And Chad had a great big door that he used as a desk, so it could spread out all of his books. And I had a little tiny desk, and we tried not to look at each other or talk to each other so we could be productive.
I'd fall asleep on my books about 2 or 3 in the morning.
I remember the alarm clock going off about 15 times because we could not wake up because we would just be so exhausted.
School started really early, so I think it was good for us that we set up a morning routine. And I still tell colleagues all the time, if you set up your morning routine, you probably engineer more of your day than if you don't, right? If you just let everything happen to your life, even in medical practice, your family's going to get the scraps. Your marriage is not going to thrive. If you start your day and engineer your own day, it's probably going to go better than if everybody else tries to command it. And I think we were fortunate. We lived close. We didn't have to do 50, 60, 70, 80 minutes on a light rail going in different directions. We're fortunate because I think, planned ahead. Well, we tried to plan ahead. Maybe it didn't work out as well as we thought it would, but we were relatively close by mileage to campus. So we had a morning commute that maybe was 10, 15, 20 minutes. Marla worked in the medical center. I was the medical student. And so we could typically get up, do an early breakfast together. Breakfast was sort of the given, because after that, our days were going to go in pretty different directions. And then, use that time to commute in one vehicle until I got busier clinically. And so we used some of that captive audience time to try to stay connected. And that was some good conversation time, whether the streets were flooding or not, whether we could find parking or not. Marla had better parking as an employee than we would have ever had as medical students. I went to a medical school where medical student license plates were stolen off their cars every other day. It was commonplace. I don't know how many vehicle sets of license plates we had to replace. Special, untappable screws or not.
I learned how to cook while we were in medical school. We went to the grocery store, and every week I bought a new kind of vegetable to try.
Yeah, we were newlyweds, right? So we had to figure it out, right? I'm still a terrible cook. One of our sons says, I have 2 dishes. He's like, Dad, you know it. What did he say at the holidays recently? He said, don't get in the kitchen. Don't start now. I said, for crying out loud, why start now? And as a kid, he'd always say, what? You got 2 culinary arts phenoms going on here. Tuna and tuna cheese.
Well, my first day of work, Chad made a cheese and jam sandwich for me. Okay.
Wow.
And wrote a nice note in it. And I was so surprised because I had never had anything like that in my life. And at first I thought it was a joke, but then I realized that
I was sincere.
he was being kind, and so I appreciated it after
Cheese
that.
and jelly.
We often went out with another married couple to a Chinese restaurant. The waiter would come around and just throw it on your lap really fast.
Good memories, right? We weren't accustomed to Chinese food, but it was great.
Yeah. My question, we talk a lot about the support that you've given him. What support did you have, and how did you take care of yourself to keep everything going during that time?
I'd say mostly family support from a distance. But I was also working, so I had lots of coworkers to be with every day, which was really great. And then Chad was, a good sounding board for some of the problems that arose there too, I would say.
Yeah, the medical district was really a good, warm, inviting place to work, welcoming to, I would say, spouses, significant others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? They really welcomed us. You just don't know where life's going to lead you, right? So embrace it, grow with it. We tried to do that, right? We didn't know as the medical school journey was ending exactly how that was all going to turn out. Match day then was not digitally determined. You didn't wake up and get a token and open your email. It was actually printed out on paper. As I've shared with candidates interviewing for residency programs, right? The 4th year is a good year. You should build a lot into it, but there are going to be some things that happen in your life, some of which are expected, some of which are not expected. We were expecting a baby on match day. And most medical students are like, what? How can that happen? Well, yeah, we had our firstborn family edition expected on match day. And I remember that very day thinking, I'm going to open an envelope and it's going to be saying where we're going to go for residency. And Marla said, hey, I think I'm in labor. And I'm like, really? What? Today? Now that little baby didn't come until about 12 days later.
11 days later.
11 days later. So overdue. So we got to celebrate match day and the arrival of firstborn baby. And so it was a particularly busy time. We moved 3 weeks later, try to move across the country with a 3-week-old baby in a car seat who doesn't really want to wake up, enjoy life, and smell the roses.
Would you do that again?
Yeah, we did
Definitely.
it again.
What makes you say that?
It was excitement, high adventure. We recognized that if we were going to start a family, right, that was the time. Probably wasn't going to happen later in residency. So we had said, wow, this would be a good time to think about where we want to be. And we had some root structures in the Midwest. We got a little bit closer to family for residency, but not a whole lot closer.
It was a big change, definitely a huge adjustment. It was joyful and exciting and scary all at the same time.
I was a junior attending in my first gig after residency, having been at the medical staff meeting the night before. I never leave anything in the vehicle, right? But I had tucked my black bag with a few journal articles and a few things behind the seat that night because I knew I was going to leave early. I didn't want to bring it in with me. I walked out early, I thought, to join two boys and my wonderful wife at home. Another colleague walked out early with me. He's like, "Oh, someone stole your car, buddy, didn't they?" I said, "I think so. I was parked right next there to that little Charlie Brown Christmas tree." So police show up about 2 hours later. They're like, "Sir, do you know who stole your car?" I'm like, if I'd have known who stole my car, I wouldn't have waited patiently for 2 hours for you guys to come. "Oh, well, it's probably the same 6 kids that steal 50 cars in the inner city here every day." Sitting in the back of the police cruiser. Can't find my car. They say, "Oh, well, we'll probably find it by noon tomorrow." So I'm on attending rounds the next day at the other hospital that I worked at. And I get a call. It's the local police saying, "Hey, we found your car." And the medical students and the residents on that team were like, "What? Who would steal your car?" All had nicer cars than I did, but they had thrown everything looking for whatever they were looking for in that black bag, threw it out on a certain avenue, and lo and behold, about 2 days later, somebody calls and says to my secretary at work, "Wow, do you know Dr. Brands?" And she's like, "What? Like, you got his bag? What happened to him?" And some man had found this bag at about 4 in the morning laying in the middle of the highway.
We wanted to leave the city to start our family.
Have a real life outside the
Yeah.
medical district, right? We didn't want to
Yeah.
live right in the shadow of the skyscraper. The chief resident said, "What? You live way up there north of the medical center?" And the program director said, "Well, they got a baby, for crying out loud. You think they're going to live right next to the hospital?"
Yeah, we lived 20 miles out of town just so we could get out in the country.
It sounds like this is a lot of work. What makes it worth it?
I think
It's rewarding, you know. It's the journey is interesting. There are always new things around the corner, and you know, it is difficult, but it's so worth it. It's very rewarding to see, you know, like to see him from a college student all the way up through, you know, it's amazing.
If you had to go back and tell your younger self any advice, what would you tell them?
Stay in the race. It is a marathon. I mean, life's a journey. It's high adventure. But I think when you look back, you're going to recognize it's the time that you invested with your family and your friends and your faith root structure that's going to get you through, right? Your colleagues are going to be with you for a season. You're going to have great colleagues that may or may not become best friends and great professional friends. But at the end of your life, right, it's going to be those people that are sitting in the first couple rows at your funeral, right? Those are your family, your very, very best friends, and you can't leave them behind, right? They often can get left behind in the busy demands of the medical profession, and having seen others maybe not invest the time that they needed to in their family, right? Don't shortchange your family in this busy field, right? Because otherwise there might be a lot of regret.
Speaking of that, is there anything that you would have changed? It can be anything, from big to small, that if you had another shot or another take at the first few years, what would you have changed, if anything?
I don't think I would have probably changed anything. You always wish you knew what you might have wished you would have known, but you know, you don't know that in life, right? You just have to work with the information you have at the time and try to support one another on the journey.
What do you think you wish you would have known?
Just
I would
more of
say
the unknown.
Like maybe just getting more involved in the community, the church, other people.
Knowing how to plug in faster, maybe. Because it's hard, right? When you land in a new city and then you've got all the demands of medical school, you had a new job.
So maybe just like getting a little bit more involved earlier.
So what advice would you give to other spouses of medical students who are just beginning this journey?
How do you support each other, and how did you make sure to take care of yourself?
It's really important that we have these kinds of conversations in the medical community. Again, you can't give your best to your patients as a doctor if you're not taking care of yourself and your family. Thanks for watching, and until next time,
Stay well.
study well and live well together, better together.
Let's do one and marry well.
I better say that. So thanks for watching, and until next time,
Stay well.
study well and marry well and live well with your spouse.
Doctors and the dean is here. Wisdom on tap, no fear. Medical school's a marathon, not a sprint, my dear. From anatomy you find your compass right from the very start.